Look at the fact that we have increased even our rice production. We have reduced rice importation. Look at the number of millionaires that were created in one state.
Cybercrime, which has today remained a cause for concern to the global community, with Nigeria having its own share of devastating effect, has attracted attention of lawmakers in the Senate. Senators noted with concern current and threatening dimension of cyber attack and put the issue under close examination to combat the situation, especially on its security implication.
To immediately convoke a national stakeholder conference on cybersecurity with a view to stimulating a collective reflection among relevant stakeholders and articulating a national broad-based approach to keeping the country ahead of challenges.
Just as we are getting ready, and then prepared against the conventional war, we must also be getting ready, and also prevent, a possible cyber attack.
Counter-radicalism, strategic communication, cooperation among security operatives, as well as multinational and multilateral levels engagements have been identified as necessary for achieving a national framework and preventive plan against violent extremism. This was at a national workshop on preventing violent extremism through effective narratives and messaging by the Office of the National Security Advisor to the President.
Communicating our values effectively is critical to defeating the ideology of terror, and without fear, we must all rise to our responsibilities.
A coordinated approach to countering violent extremism in a manner that can amplify all of the efforts that we are making and amplify the results.
And the idea for the workshop is to bring together representatives from the national government and also civil society to discuss, strategies for countering and preventing violent extremism.
And that's the news for now. Kieran and Kingsley will be back after this break. Don't go away.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Winning in hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another.
What keeps you so cool, man?
Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
So what's up, sweetheart? You really look like you're up to something.
I have a secret.
Okay.
I'll be going to Europe next week.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Like you have your visa, your passport, your plane ticket?
No, not that way. Some men are helping us. We pay them, they take us through the desert, and then we cross the sea into Europe.
The desert, the sea. Isn't that the route where many have died?
Yes, it is indeed a very dangerous journey. In 2016 alone, 4,900 people died while crossing the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe. Many were Nigerians. For the very few who survived the journey, they are forced into prostitution or other crimes just to survive. Eventually, they will be arrested and deported to Nigeria. Don't be a victim. Don't go this way.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
To business now, experts say no cause for alarm following release of first quarter GDP figures, and the Nigerian Stock Exchange rebounds in Tuesday's session. Leah Kaltung Babatunde is here with us with details.
The Nigerian economy may not have lived up to expectation at a glance following the persistent slowdown in the economy. The Nigerian Bureau of Statistics and figures released on Tuesday morning indicate that in the first quarter of 2017, the nation's gross domestic product GDP contracted by 0.52% year-on-year in real terms, representing the fifth consecutive quarter of contraction since Q1 2016. The NBS also revised the fourth quarter 2016 contraction to 1.73% from 1.3%. An economic analyst, Nia Kinshiju, tells NTA Business News the report shows a gradual recovery process.
What the NBS is telling us is that now we are seeing relative growth. We have not grown out of the recession in the real sense of it, but we are growing out. It's a continuous tense.
Oil output was low in the quarter despite an OPEC decision to allow Nigeria and Libya upscale output. Major oil fields have remained closed due to unrest, and Nia Kinshiju is of the opinion that oil remains key to driving growth in other sectors of the economy.
We need that sector to diversify this economy. If you don't have enough fund coming from that sector, it will impact negatively all sectors and subsectors of the economy. If you don't have enough production, it will translate to reduced cash flow in terms of foreign exchange. When you have reduced cash flow, it will impact the production process. It will impact the agricultural process because you will not have enough dollars to give to importers of raw materials, importers of equipment to bring into Nigeria.
And the non-oil sector grew by 0.72% in the first quarter in real terms, which was 1.05% higher than the fourth quarter of 2016. Its growth was driven by the agriculture sector, manufacturing and transportation. Now finally, the Nigerian stock market made a slight rebound in Tuesday's session, recording a marginal rise in the all-share index of 0.05%. It closed at 28,093.3 points, and the market capitalization 9.712 trillion naira. 212 million shares were traded in 3,908 deals worth 2.18 billion naira. FBN Holdings, Diamond Bank and Fidelity Bank topped activities during the session. USC Property, Fitson Healthcare and Vitafoam led the green flank, while the reds were topped by Dangote Flour, Learn Africa and Cement Company of Northern Nigeria. And that is business news for this hour. Thank you for watching.
Thank you very much, dear Leah Kaltung Babatunde, for the business package. And good morning, Nigeria. Next for us, we go to the newspapers to check out the stories they have on their front pages.
And the newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria, and our reviewer is here with us, Omini Oden. You're welcome to the newspaper review.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Kinsley.
All right, but let's begin. Of course, the story that we have on the front page of most of the papers today, the story has to do with the state of the economy, as well as the reaction or response of the central bank. Let's take the leadership as our first paper. Leadership has as its lead story, Nigeria's GDP hits 26.02 trillion naira as recession slows. That's how the leadership captures it. That's his lead story. Details of that story can be found on page 5. Now, just above that, it says CBN retains interest at 14%. Details on page 25. Below the nameplate, Kano attracts $200 million foreign investments in 2 years, and lead poison, that should be lead poisoning, threatens 30 Zamfara communities. Details of that story can be found inside the paper. And then also there on the front page, beside the photograph, you have the story, Zakzaki's detention in public interest, and this is attributed to the presidency. All right.
All right, now, the New Telegraph. The lead story here is the presidency. Buhari will win presidential poll again if, well, we need to get details of that on page 2. With the writer dismisses report on coup plot and says president has not failed Nigerians. Well, very interesting here is the picture, the photo story here, where we have a catch of all manner of rifles imported into the country, and just below that, customs intercept container load of weapons at port. Assorted rifles shipped from Turkey, and the suspect has been arrested. The full story of that is on page 3. Now, above the nameplate, we have Nigeria's economy shrinks again, says the MBS, and then CBN keeps rate on hold. MFLA recession will end in the third quarter of the year. The full details on page 4. Now, below the nameplate, we have some stories there. We have a Wike on the left. Wike's project will get him second term, says Mark on page 5. And besides that, we have FRC indicts government agencies over 1.2 billion naira surplus on page 2, and that's attributed to the Minister of Finance. And now, abattoir demolition. We won't bring cows to Lagos, cattle dealers, says that's on page 9. And that is Ambode there, the governor of Lagos State, by the side of that. And then Atiku, I trusted pastor. He defrauded me of 908 million naira. That's Mrs. Atiku. The story is on page 10 of New Telegraph. Maybe when you have to come in here.
Yeah, two big ones there, as much as the time will allow. The National Bureau of Statistics yesterday released its report on the gross domestic product of the country for the first quarter of this year, and the total sum, as reflected in the papers, is 26.02 trillion, which is 0.52%. By the records, it says, with this negative growth rate, the economy is still in recession. The growth rate is an improvement over the previous greater quarter, which appears to be in line with the expectation of the federal government that the country will come out of recession by June this year. This is reinforced by the special advisor to the president on economic matters, Dr. Adeyemi, and the CBN governor, Emefiele. He says that in as much as this is there has been a turnaround in the manufacturing sector and the non-oil sector. So there is hope that the June-July deadline for the nation to come out of recession is really enforced. The big news is that just a couple of months ago, we had an interception of over 600 various brands of ammunition along Mile 2 in Lagos, close to Apapa. And yesterday, the customs again uncovered a container of 440 various arms and ammunition. The breakdown shows that 100 of it is Tenodoro single barrel rifles, 75 pieces of silver Magnum single barrels, 50 pieces of Alta pump action rifle, 215 pieces of black single barrel rifles, and it was imported into the country as plaster made from Paris, and it came in through Turkey. Well, the information is that a principal suspect has been arrested, but they will not make disclosure to aid in investigation. But this has further saved the country. God knows where this was heading to. So those are the two for now.
Well, I just wonder. I mean, it's curious. Is Nigeria going to war?
Really, seriously.
I mean, you'll find the kind of weapons that are being imported into the
and
country.
this is about our lives. And people take it as business.
Yes.
Then
the DSS yesterday said businessman and CEO of Capital Oil, the offense he has committed is punishable by death. That NNPC on trust gave Capital Oil 80 million litres of petroleum products to keep worth 11 billion naira. But at the time NNPC needed to shore up shortages in the country, Capital Oil could not produce it. And that is why it's still being held in custody, and that if they follow up the matter, it is punishable by death.
So, well, you follow it up. I mean, that's the point. That's the point of rule of law. I mean, you follow it up and then let him go.
That if NNPC does not take proactive stance, would have had a serious scarcity of petroleum products in the country.
Yeah, well, let them charge him to court and let the court, let them, let there be diligent prosecution, as the saying goes. Let's take the Daily Trust very quickly. Daily Trust, below the nameplate, we have the following headlines. Buhari has paid his dues to Nigerians, and this is attributed to the presidency. Details of that story can be found on page 3. Now, rice farmers vow to resist importation. Again, you find that story on page 3. Now, the lead story says, Kebbi Assembly orders arrest of ex-governor Dakingeri. Dakingeri was the governor until 2015. Now, the photograph you find there is a story that we just discussed a moment ago. Customs impounds another 440 rifles. And then below that, you have a window of 3 other headlines. It says, Atiku's wife, how a pastor I trust defrauded me of 918 million naira. Details on page 4. And APC members nearly double PDP in House of Reps. You had a spate of defections lately. Details of that story on page 35. And federal government, states, and local governments share 415 billion naira for April. Kieran.
All right, quickly on this day, well, this morning, above the nameplate, Shebajo seeks National Assembly's approval for additional $1.28 billion external loan. The story is on page 8 of this day. And below the nameplate, Health Minister, why Buhari could not be treated in Nigeria. President will win if another election is held today, says aide. Presidency dismisses report on coup plots, insists the security retention related to other charges. That's on page 8. And now the lead story here is MFLA Dipolu, insists on Nigeria on recovery path. The Nigeria is on recovery path as economic contracts by 0.5% in the first quarter. Maybe we will now round up here.
Yes, just to round up, yesterday the presidency came up with the fact that it is too early for Nigerians to, or some people to imagine that the present administration should be scored. 2 years is too early. That by the end of 4 years, there would have been enough dividend to prove that Buhari has not failed Nigerians. And quickly, the Minister of Health, Isaac Adewale, yesterday explained that it's not that there are no facilities in Nigeria to treat Mr. President, but medical science proves that a patient gets used to a particular trend of treatment. And Mr. President, doctors over time have been in London. That's why he has sustained his treatment with the London doctors. And also the acting president yesterday sent in additional $1.28 billion external borrowing plan. From the record, it says it's to accommodate the funding of the DBN Bank, the Development Bank of Nigeria, and the second tranche of funds for agricultural financing in 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan of the federal government.
All right.
That's what I can take on that.
All right, Omine, thanks a lot. Just some stories before we wrap it up in the segment. Just 2 stories briefly from page 4 of the Daily Trust. We won't be able to take that, of course, by way of discussion. Yeah. Channels Television lost their state house reporter yesterday. He was 55. And then there's also a story about a fire on Zuma Rock after some light showers. Some persons are attributing all kinds of reasons.
And the popular TV star, James Bond.
Yeah, well, James Bond, Roger Moore died at 89. All right, that's as much we can take on the newspaper review segment. It's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, do not forget we have 3 items to discuss.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at you, oh get roller. Change begins with you and me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with me. Oh, change begins with me.
Everyday air. And then there's TomTom Air. There's air, and then there's TomTom Air. What are you breathing? New TomTom 5-piece pack.
We appreciate the gesture, we appreciate her love, and we know that she cares about the people of Nigeria.
She wants to touch people's life, especially the less privileged, or even people who are sick in the hospital. We remember that they have a wife of the president who is very concerned about human life and humanity in general.
All right, welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. As we indicated, we have 3 items for discussion today. We are having our first discussion now, and at this time, we'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister of Communications, that's Mr. Adebayo Shitu. Honorable Minister, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
It's my pleasure being here.
All right, let's begin straight away. That's nearly 2 years of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. You've been in office now yourself for 1.5 years, having taken the oath of office along with your colleagues in November of 2015. Now, what is it that you met, as Nigerians would say, on the ground, and what has changed?
Well, I want to say good morning to all Nigerians, and I want to thank the management of NTA for having me. The telecom sector, as we all know, is one sector which relatively is new in Nigeria. We came on board 1.5 years ago, and what did we meet? We met a sector which had started taking roots. We met a sector where previous communications ministers had tried to lay a solid foundation. Telecoms and ICT generally is an ongoing business. It is one business which continues to grow with the Nigerian population. I want to recall that before year 2000, Nigeria had a total of less than 500,000 telephone lines for a then population of about 160 million. That meant that if you had to phone, to even own a line, you had to pay through your nose and have an installed facility in your home. It was not mobile. It was, stationary in your home or in the office. If you had to phone overseas, you necessarily had to go to a NITEL office, pay, take a queue, and for 2-3 minutes, you have, the opportunity to talk. Again, for a minute or two, you knew then that you had to pay through your nose. GSM revolution took place around 2000, and I want to say that Nigerians have been having an improved services and improved access to telecommunications lines. ICT is not about telecom alone. It is also about internet. It is also about satellite communications. It is also about, having data centers all over. When I came on board as somebody who was a complete novice in the field of ICT, of course, I recall that a number of stakeholders had protested that somebody who never knew anything on ICT was the one saddled with responsibility, for heading the ICT industry in Nigeria. Conscious of my, lack of knowledge, as it were, I got a retreat, organized, which took place in Ibadan. And all stakeholders, about 400 of them, from government, from private sector, from Nigeria and from overseas, were invited to come and brainstorm with a view to, charting a course, to go. I am happy that the result of that retreat was what we now have as ICT Roadmap 2016-2019. By the grace of God, today, the ICT Roadmap will be presented at the Federal Executive Council, for endorsement. Once it is endorsed, we will unleash, the contents and the projects there onto the Nigerian scene. I want to say with satisfaction that over the last 1 year, 1.5 years, we have done a lot in improving on a number of, factors within ICT. For instance, as of today, we have had investments worth more than $36 billion. This never happened before. And today, ICT alone contributes more than 10% to the gross domestic product. Again, that has never happened. Today, the growth of ICT is faster than that of every other sector in the Nigerian system. Again, I want to say with clear assertion that today ICT engages more Nigerians by way of work and labor than any other sector. Not even agri, not even petroleum, which gives us, almost 90%, of our income. That means that we will continue to witness this because ICT enables life to be better. ICT enables governance to be better. ICT engages even business to be better. And that is why today you have what is called e-commerce. E-commerce has become a new phenomenon in commerce, all over the world. Today, if you have to buy something from Maiduguri, you could be in Abuja or could be in Shaki, where I come from, or some other place, and buy online, pay online, and get what you have bought, delivered to you in your home. These are all enablements of ICT. And I believe that with the dynamic growth of the Nigerian society, we will continue to, witness, growth in the sector. So I would say that we have come a long way. And I will also say that the potentials are even much better than we can ever imagine. This is more so that we have a number of countries which never had petroleum. Some never even had land for agri. And yet they have, surpassed Nigeria in all indices of development using ICT. We can, mention a number of countries. The Nordic countries are that they don't have petroleum, they don't have land, and the Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, and all of that, they are all making steady progress in terms of development. Even within the African continent, we have countries like Kenya and, Rwanda, which never had oil. But today, if you go to these countries, you know that lives are better because governance, has become better using ICT. So it is our projection and, our ambition to ensure that ICT is made to be more relevant to every sector of the Nigerian economy, including our lives, including, commerce, including agriculture, including health and all of that, so that we could also be on the path of steady growth.
All right, Honorable Minister, thank you very much for that explanation. The Obasanjo administration really gave support to the communication sector with the launch of a Nigerian communication satellite. And you have visited some of these agencies, including NIGCOMSAT. And you've told us here that you've launched the Nigerian communication sector roadmap 2016-2019. Nigerians would like to share with you what the roadmap encapsulates.
Well, it's a long list. It's a very bulky document. It's a long list, but I can assure you that, for instance, in the area of NIGCOMSAT, which you mentioned, what is NIGCOMSAT? NIGCOMSAT is Nigerian satellite communications, company. This is the company that handles or manages Nigeria's satellite in orbit. Satellite is about wireless communication. Satellite is about a communication which does not require fiber connectivity, in the ground. Satellite is like you have, a satellite on orbit. I mean, satellite is an equipment which is, located in orbit and is able to be utilized to transmit information across the world. We have just one in orbit, and having one satellite in orbit and is analogous to having, a transport company flying Lagos to Abuja. If people are aware that it does not have a spare tire, certainly people will not have confidence to patronize such a transport company because they know that when they have a tire burst on the way, they will be stuck on the, perhaps in the bush. In the same vein, Nigeria has just one. Even though we have not been able to fully utilize its capacity, but all the same, people who are potential customers of NECOMSAT are afraid that with just one satellite without a backup, they might have problem. And it has happened before. Initially, we had satellite 1. It crashed, and every data there was lost. So what we are making, and because of this, deficiency, a lot of customers in Nigeria, potential customers, including government ministries, departments, and agencies, and the private sector, which is, has a robust, propensity for utilization of satellite communication, will prefer to utilize foreign satellite companies.
I'm just wondering, I'm wondering what has been done, because we discussed on this program a couple of years ago the lack of patronage of the Nigerian satellite. Now, are we saying that 2 years on, the lack of patronage persists? What has been done to reverse?
It has not been fully utilized, again, because of the reason I have said. Yes. When we came on board, when I saw this deficiency, I felt that there was need for us to acquire 2 more satellites in orbit. I believe that if we succeed in having this, like 3 satellites in orbit, it will provide a lot of confidence in potential customers, not only within Nigeria, but within Africa and even overseas. And then at that stage, we will be able to, even utilizing legislation, compel Nigerian companies, compel Nigerian government agencies and ministries and so on to patronize only the Nigerian satellite.
Where are we now in terms of the hope?
Where we are is we have negotiated with China Exim Bank, which facilitated the first one that is in use now. The 2 that we are looking for now, in addition to what we have, will cost us $550 million. The company is prepared to provide the money, except that Nigeria is expected to provide 15% counterpart funding. That 15% will amount to about 30 billion, which Nigeria doesn't have. I am happy to say that even yesterday, I had a foreign company where, we have started discussions. They are likely to bring in money to, assist with the 30% funding. If that happens, then we can be sure that in another 2 years, we will have sufficiency, which will create the, the confidence in the international community that they can patronize NECOMSAT and go and rest that their data would be safe.
Honorable Minister, I was privileged to be in China during the launch of the 2 satellites in question, and I also carried out a study on satellite business. Yeah. Now, it's an international business, and I believe that NASCOMSAT should have other satellite companies that they liaise with in the advent of loss of satellites, so that you can transfer whatever data you have to other satellites. It's an international communication system. Now, what I'm asking is this: how did China begin their own satellite business? Because they compelled all companies to patronize, even if it's one, because that's the only way you can make money to launch the second one. Now, in the Nigerian context, for instance, the transponders in that satellite are underutilized. And I don't understand why, if you go to a bank in Nigeria, for instance, say the internet is slow. It's because we are using either Intelsat or Nilesat or what have you, which has no footing on Africa in the first place. So how would you come around this to see how Nigerians can patronize that to raise money for second one?
Well, look, if you want to give, it is often said, if you want to take maybe a cake from a child, you must be ready to give the child honey in replacement. If you have to compare Nigerians to patronize a facility, you must first build in them the confidence that they will not be running a business which may crash. If it crashes, there's nothing to replace what is, lost. What we are doing, and I mean, within the time that I came, that was the way that I felt we should go. First, provide enough capacity, enough facilities, for which we can beat our chest and say, you patronize Nigeria. If you patronize Nigeria, there's no possibility of risk.
I'm wondering, Honorable Minister, apparently, Kirian, part of the issue here, all right, you have a new plan to acquire 2 additional satellites, which will serve as a backup, and therefore be in a position
additional
capacity, encourage and even compel Nigerian users to then patronize. So the issue here probably is funding. Now, funding and what about other issues pertain to this? Is this part of your ICT roadmap for 2016-2019? If so, that's one leg of my question. You said the Federal Executive Council probably will be considering...
Most likely this morning.
Yeah, this morning or at some future. We're already in 2017. Yeah. Has the roadmap been kicked into effect since you say it's 2016 to 2019?
Well, I would... you see, the roadmap was ready as at August last year for, endorsement of the Federal Executive Council. But we had some hitches within the system. We had, a problem of, for instance, Ministry of Science and Tech, expecting that some of the agencies under the Ministry of Communications ought to belong to them. It took us some time before a resolution was done, but I'm happy that that resolution has been done, and I am happy to report that today, because governance is not about communications alone. We have a lot of challenges in government, as you would expect, in a country as challenged as Nigeria, has been. But I want to assure you that this morning, it is, in fact, providential that it is this morning when the adoption has been slated, to take place, that we're having, this conversation.
Another point I would like you to touch on very briefly. We know that you have to rush off to be present at the Executive Council meeting. What is the state of NIPOST?
Well, NIPOST, again, you know that NIPOST is as old as Nigeria. We have always known NIPOST, and I can assure you as of today, NIPOST, facilities exist in about 1,500 locations across the country. Before GSM came, NIPOST was relevant to everybody who had reason to communicate with people across the country and across the world using written, form. Today, with the coming of GSM, NIPOST became almost irrelevant to the lives of Nigerians. Patronage necessarily reduced because the correspondence you will send through letter, which will take about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in a real time.
Yes.
You get your correspondence across either through SMS or through email or through WhatsApp or whatever. But so when I came up, but the infrastructures are still there. And I felt that the proper thing was not to continue to think that we have had a bad day in NIPOST business. We could use the infrastructures, we could reform the whole NIPOST system to make it more relevant to the everyday life of Nigerians. Yeah. And one of the decisions is that insofar as a lot of Nigerians in rural areas are either completely unserved or underserved, having regard to financial services, there's what we call financial inclusion, to get people in the rural areas to also enjoy the services of banking. Yet banks are in less than 50% of the local government areas in Nigeria. So we felt, as in the ministry with my leadership, felt that we could use NIPOST to bring about financial inclusiveness into, the rural areas by a way of establishing what is called NIPOST Bank. This exists in China, in South Korea, and in a few other places. So that is one of the reform package that we have now. The second reform package is to also introduce what is called NIPOST Transport and Logistics Services. You know that NIPOST necessarily has a lot of vehicles to transport mails. We feel that we could commercialize this so that people who go from here to Lagos, for instance, to buy merchandise, could simply, get the merchandise to a NIPOST facility for transmission to this place. Again, we are thinking of having NIPOST Property and Development Services. NIPOST in so many locations has excess land which are unutilized. By the grace of God, we hope to advertise this for developers who may come and take leases of this land, develop them into shopping complexes, office complexes, malls, and even garages. on a partnership basis.
All right, Minister, we have to end this conversation here. Because I know you have a lot to tell us, and there are also other grounds we couldn't cover because of a time factor. Thank you very much indeed for being here.
It's my pleasure.
The Honorable Minister of Communications, Adebayo Shitu, on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you once again for being here.
You're most welcome.
All right, and next will be a background report coming straight away. Stay with us.
May 29, 2015 was a watershed in Nigeria's democratic experience. The reason is obvious, as that was the first time in Nigeria when an opposition party would defeat a ruling party in a democratic transition. Nigeria's democratic experience has been one with mixed fortunes, as some have described it as turbulent, while others think it has been smooth, particularly since 1999, when the military handed over power to a democratically elected government. From independence till date, the question of whether democracy is growing or not remains one that no emphatic answer could be given. While some believe that the concept of democracy could have taken more roots if not for a series of interruptions by military coups, others say the period where politicians held sway is not any better. This is because several problems appear to run through the nation's democratic journey. For instance, the democratic principle of separation of power is yet to be entrenched both at the federal and state levels. Many cases abound where the relationship between the executive and legislature is nothing but cordial. The fight for relevance and supremacy has led to questionable impeachments, poor governance, corruption, among others. The concept of godfatherism and money politics has also assumed a harmful dimension where democracy appears to be a game for the highest bidder. Other issues include the continuous incidences of inconclusive, cancelled and upturned elections, which has left sour taste in the mouth of electoral bodies, both at the federal and state levels. Elections are increasingly seen as a do-or-die affair, leading to violence and deaths. Impunity by government officials and lack of regard for rule of law also makes many to question the growth of democracy in Nigeria. Political parties also seem to lack any ideology and simply have no regard for internal democracy. Politicians have also tried, and in some cases succeeded in infiltrating the judiciary, making it to compromise the cause of justice. All these issues, as well as the rise in poverty among Nigerians, make increased the interrogation of the growth of democracy in Nigeria. How can some of the present challenges be overcome, and what does the future hold for democracy in Nigeria? These and more are what guests will be discussing shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Ngozi Chude, for that background report. Now we have guests with us here in the studios as well as at our Just Network Center to discuss the challenges with Nigeria's democracy. First, we'd like to welcome the former governor of Anambra, Abia, by the way, they're both AA. The former governor of Abia State, that's Chief Oji Uzo Kalu. Chief Kalu, a pleasure to have you join us on the program.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we also have with us here in the studios, she's a lawyer, but Esther Uzoma, and of course, a civil society activist. A pleasure to have you join us, Esther
Thank
Uzoma
you very
today.
much.
All right, Kirian?
Yeah, from our Just studio, we are being joined by Professor Audu Gamble, Professor of Political Science, University of Jos. Prof, good morning and welcome to the program. But we just can't hear him. Perhaps we have difficulties along the line of communication from Jos, but perhaps in the course of the program we can get that right. So Kingsley?
All right. So, well, let's begin straight away on the 29th of this month, which is only a few days away. It will be 18 years since Nigeria got into the Fourth Republic by way of democracy. And Chief Oji Uzo Kalu, you were two-term governor of Abia State. You've also been on the political scene. Looking back and looking ahead, is Nigeria's democracy making progress, or are we making progress with our democracy?
Well, thank you very much. I think so far, not too good. It could have been so far so good, but we could have been better off by now. But both all sectors of the economy, all sectors of democratic process have made it impossible for us to move forward. And where we are today, we are very backward in democratic process. I'm sure we have not made sufficient progress in the democratic process.
Why do you say that?
Yes, what are the indices actually?
Well, it's simple. We politicians, but some of us are full-time politicians. Some of them are both business and politicians. We that play politics, 20% of it, and the other 80% are the private sector. We came into politics with a lot of enthusiasm, zeal to see our people through, zeal to maintain the democratic norms like rule of law, obey to constitution, obey to ordinary court orders and all the rest of them, which are very essential in a democratic process. I've told you this before in this studio, that people only look at the hardware of democracy, but the software is more important, which is obeying the laws of the land. And both judges in court strictly going through the law of the land, not law of political questions. So you can see the things seems things are going backward than moving forward. And I'm not really very happy with it. This is why I say, because we are not obeying the laws of the land.
Yeah. All right. Esther,
Yes,
what's your take on this? Just look at Nigeria holistically, from the time we returned to democracy in 1999.
Yes, yeah. We've been celebrating democracy, but this democratic ship is manned strictly by people who are not democratic. We have had several democratic regimes. We have motion that is devoid of movement. Because if you look at the promises of democracy, what is it? Freedom of expression, inclusiveness. These things are lacking in our democracy. In fact, the democratic processes in Nigeria, chief of which is elections, have become armed struggle. Democracy, that process of democracy in Nigeria is purely armed struggle. Who has the bigger, who can fire, who has more firepower? Inclusiveness is almost zero. Whereas, there was some progress, gained perhaps during just the past administration, in terms of national gender policy. We've lost all that. We are now at almost less than 18%. So that inclusiveness, what makes democracy is the processes. How democratic are they? How willing are the institutions? How organized, are they to obey the rule of law? Can we be talking of democracy when people, shun the rule of law and democratic tenets? So what we have now, at best, can also be bestowed upon us by benevolent despots. A benevolent military man can well be running the system. What's the difference? The laws now are the pleasure of whoever is wielding the guns. So we are not there yet. So we have regimes, quite all right, but no, we have not reached, the promise of democracy we're enjoying.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you. The number of pertinent questions that you have raised, pertinent issues that you have raised. That's legal practitioner Esther Uzoma. Let's go over to Jos Network Studios, where we are to introduce Professor Audu Gambo, Professor of Political Science, University of Jos. Professor Gambo, quite a while that we've had you on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's get to your initial salvos on what you think is the scorecard for Nigeria's democracy 18 years on in the Fourth Republic.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. Let me start by noting the concept of democracy as we use it in political science discipline. Democracy as a concept embodies three key ideas. One, we look at democracy as a moral imperative. That is the demand, the legitimate demand of freedom-loving people. Second one is democracy as a social process, which means it is a process through which the social condition of the people, the citizens, is improved upon. The third one, democracy as a political practice. That means that, yes, there are certain norms and principles of democracy. Those norms and principles underwrite a democratic government. And if we are going by all this, honestly speaking, we have gross deficit in each of these three. Looking at democracy as the moral imperative, that's the demand of a freedom-loving people. Democracy presupposes that people are the repository of power. In other words, power lies with the people, and they can give it to whoever they want, people they trust, people they believe that they have the capacity, they have the ability and the capability to really deliver, to bring about improvement in their social well-being. And in the context of looking at it as a political process, it then means that there are certain norms and processes, or principles that drive a democratic system. One is that the center of power, the location, where is power located? As I've said earlier on, power belongs to the people. And the same people can give it to whoever they want or whoever they believe has capacity to deliver to them what they expect. The second one is that this sense of accountability is very, very critical in a democratic government, because you can't be exercising what I call fiduciary resource. Power is a fiduciary resource in the sense that it is something that is held in trust for the people. And so if you are exercising the mandate, you have the responsibility of explaining to the people how and why you have expended that mandate, because they deserve to know how that mandate is being expended. Is it for their overall good or for the good of a minority? And honestly speaking, I think from my honest point of view, power has never been used positively in driving the developmental aspirations of Nigerians, in meeting the developmental aspirations of Nigerians. If anything, in fact, we have seen the opposite. In other words, a few people will use political power just to corner for themselves resources, the good things that are meant for the people, and leaving the people wallowing in poverty. The rate of poverty in Nigeria as we speak today is growing on a daily basis. And that is simply because those who are driving the democratic project themselves are scarcely democratic. They don't have what it takes to really preside over a democratic system.
Prof, let me take you on some specific issues now. Let's talk about ideology, political party formation, and association in Nigeria, because it is fundamental. Before you get to power, you must have been in one political party or the other. How would you look at the ideologies of Nigerians' political party formation? In the political science class, we are told that sometimes what we are taught is not what is practiced, actually, as you have just explained. Now, what do you make of the way Nigerians parties are formed, the ideologies and all over, or do we really have an ideology at all?
Let me be very honest with you, Kirian. Party formation in Nigeria is never done, in the context of ideology. It's not driven by ideology. It's not based on ideology. What happens in the Nigerian context is that, few disgruntled people who have been in one political party before, and because of marginalization, exclusion and whatever, they feel threatened, and therefore the platform is no longer comfortable for them. So they want to now create another party, which may not be different from the one they are living. And so there is nothing ideological about party formation in Nigeria. And if you look at all the over 40 or so political parties we have in existence right now, you cannot, by all intents and purposes, analyze them along ideological lines, because they have the same orientation, they have the same values. So there's nothing, unlike in the United States of America, where you have the Democrats with a clear-cut ideological orientation, different from that of the Republicans. In Nigeria, is the same. Politicians are just trying to provide for themselves accommodation where they can lot it over others. And when the forces within the platform become so powerful, too powerful for them, the next thing they do is to move out from there and then to carve a niche for themselves. And I don't think that is healthy for our democratic project. We must remain ideologically focused. Otherwise, how do we hold these parties accountable at the end of the day? APC, for instance, what will we say is the ideology of APC, other than the manifestos that brought them into power? The same thing with PDP. All these other parties, clearly they don't have a well-articulated ideology, to guide them in terms of governance when they eventually capture political power. That's the problem we have in Nigeria. And that is the very reason why we are not making significant progress, democratically speaking, really. Because people are driven by what I call pragmatism. They just try to please the people, make some pledges, some promises that are so appealing to the people so that they can vote for them. And once in power, of course, they can turn around to even deny what they promised the people at the end of the day, which is very immoral.
All right, Professor Audu Gambo, thank you very much. We'll return to you later on in the course of this conversation just to get the views of our two guests here in the studios. Well, gentlemen at the bar, by the way. So
I beg your pardon.
well, let's again, decompose some of the issues that you guests have articulated on the program. I've been following also from the democratic theoretical principles already outlined by Professor Gambo. Is it necessarily the case that probably we are taking too harsh a view of either the gains or the challenges of Nigeria's democratic experience 18 years on? Anyone who was present in this country before 1999, we had 16 years uninterrupted virtually of military rule, and we knew what went on. Is it possible for us, within the time frame that we have, to evaluate the freedoms or lack of it that we had at that time versus what we now have? Yes, Esther Azoma says, yeah, we are virtually having armed struggle for elections. That's one leg of it. The other leg of it is the social process. We've had politicians like the former governor of Abia State and your other colleagues, and even at the federal level, people talking about dividends of democracy. Is Nigeria today where it is the same way it was in 1999 in terms of infrastructural upgrade in different parts of the country? We can quarrel with the norms and principles the way we observe them. We can also quarrel with the alleged and apparent or obvious mismanagement of resources. But let's take a holistic view. Are we where we are in 1999? Still the same place in 2017? Let's begin again with Chief Oju Zokalo.
The answer is no. Because most of our leaders are half-baked. They are not ready for leadership, both at the local government level, at all levels. When you go back to some of the offices, states, and etc., see what people are doing, they are not following the process. Democratic gains must be a process issue where there must be a process. You see a governor, some of our governors don't even go to the offices. Some of our governors have no meeting with the permanent secretaries. They have no meeting with the security agencies. They have no meetings with the commissioners and etc. and the special advisors. You go to states, most of the states, whenever the governor is not there, it's a dead end. And it seems these things are not really working. You go to a local government, whenever the local government chairman is not there, it looks like a dead end. You come to Abuja, because the president is sick, everybody says things have gone wrong. When you have every minister in the cabinet can be a president of Nigeria. The acting president is there, they can do his job. So, because we have no democratic process that people can follow, anybody can be president of America, anybody can be prime minister of Britain, because there is process. This is the way you must do it. Yes. So, unless we go back, like I will give example. When I was governor, I have some of her colleagues she can ask when you see them in court today. Awakalo SN, Chris Uche SN, Solomon Akoba SN, and etc. They work with me, and they will tell you we had a process. And once the budget is there, it goes to the ministries. They have nothing to do with the governor's office.
Execute.
They execute. They come back if maybe this cup is 10 naira. It's now more than the original tag of the minor works committee. We had two committees. We had the minor works committee, which is chaired by commissioners in their different ministries. And we have the major works committee chaired by the State Executive Council. So with that process, you see that money can flow to the people, and money can flow through all levels of government. But now, if every contract, if everything is given in the local government chairman's office or the governor's office, then there's no process. We have done well in terms of democratic space. We have not done very well in terms of giving back the people what we had. Because you can see the kind of money that flew in between 2008, ending of 2008 and the 2015. There's a lot of money that came in. The crude oil was $110, $100 you've never seen before. So where are those money? The money are not here. So some of these leaders are not prepared. We just see somebody because he's a politician. We don't know how prepared he is. Some of our leaders don't even know the difference between macroeconomy and microeconomy. And these are the problems we are having in this situation. So unless we start letting our leaders to know what leadership is all about, we will not get it right, because we're only looking at the hardware. The software, as I told you before, is more important. The rule of law, respect to human rights, allowing the court to give an order. Release Ojekalo in detention. You must release me the minute the court says you should release me. Those are things that make democratic principle very attractive and very solid.
All right, Chief Ojekalo, it also boils down to what Professor Gambo talked about, lack of ideology, because that leads to a process. Right. You were a governor for about 8 years, in Abuja State, and you were a key player at the time. Now let's talk about local government, because without local government in any democratic setting, then the majority of Nigerians who should actually feel government are not going to feel government. Please, could you share with us what happened to the local government system? Are you happy with the situation at the moment where there has been no elections in so many states of Nigeria? In fact, where governors appoint their cohorts to head council areas, and when the money comes, because the governors, the state has the power to control the local government, the money is not properly distributed. No local government is functioning like, as rightly pointed out. So what's your take on this? How can this be corrected? Because it boils down to the process you were talking about.
Let me be honest with you. Nigerians are not students of realism. This process started when President Obasanjo, when we were in PDP, and President Obasanjo saw the AD. That was the damage of our local government councils. He didn't want to conduct election in AD states because they win and make a stronghold against for them to win all the states. The PDP wanted some of those states. They now say there will be no local government election. They stop caretaker committee. Caretaker committee of any local government in Nigeria today is a violation of our law. It's not supposed to happen. It's illegal. Supreme Court can tell you that. Appeal Court can tell you that. The Federal High Court can tell you that. It is inviolate. Forget any law made by the Houses of Assembly. It is not in consonance with our Constitution. The Constitution takes precedent. So, as far as I'm concerned, what we are practicing today is not democratic process, because the local government is supposed to be the focal point. When it's not the focal point, people will start running to the state capital, from state capital to the Abuja and Lagos, and we will not have any space. Before, when I was governor, local government people used to have their money in full. Nobody touched the money. They use it to build culverts. You just pass and say, somebody, that road is being built by local government. I have a road between Ibera and Ozuitem at the back door. Was built by local government chairman. I have other roads that were built by local government chairman. Can you say the same story today? The answer is no. It's just both you people, the journalists and non-journalists, have done damage to democracy because the rumors have taken precedence. You did not do proper analysis on those who protected democracy, those who work for democracy, and those who said no to democracy. Abia State went to court many times, to the Supreme Court, challenging our position in local government with the federal government. And we went to court 15 times. And we defeated the federal government for 13 times. So anybody telling you we have no good judiciary is lying to you. Are we ready to obey the laws of the judiciary? Are we ready to respect what pronouncement they have given? The answer is no. So,
all right, but Chief Carlo, thanks a lot. Well, let's return to Ms. Esther Uzoma. Again, in terms of evaluating, the critical issues. Yes, on the score of norms and principles, that is a democratic practice, there are challenges. But in terms of the social processes, the so-called dividends of democracy and freedoms, are we where we were 18 years ago, or are we going back and forth? Is the country elaborating, as it were, either in the economy, in the social sphere, or otherwise? Let's get your take.
Yes, I think the social space is being, there's a strangulation. Where we are presently is even worse than where we were, because where we are presently there's a veneer, of uprightness, but beneath that covering is worse than what is deceptive. Because you label it democracy, but behind it is a regime that does not care less. Human beings are the laws in this time, and what I'm telling you, that court will give an order. They'll say, listen, bring that court to this place. So it is bad. It's worse than where we were before, because there's a deception. That there's a veneer of democratic principles. But that is not correct. That is not correct. And then the civil space is getting smaller and smaller. Speech, there's no free speech anymore. Eventually, you hear that this person said this thing. Oh, he's been arrested. This governor is prosecuting this person just because of what somebody said. When the military was there, everybody said, oh yes, this is military regime. We braced up to it. But with this democratic regime, that gives a veneer of lawfulness. He said, oh, it's a democracy, let me speak. And then, so it is even worse than it is before. And particularly for women, we are losing so much space. Remember, voting rights, for instance, for women came 50 years after men started voting. But we are losing all the gains. The promises are no longer there. Hope is no longer kept alive. So it's even worse than it was before. Particularly, because democracy is people-centered. So they're removing the removal of the people continually from democratic process. Like OUK said, you can't even say, okay, this is the process this thing will go through. Local governments will come, the process of approval and all that. No. What you just said is that a governor sits where he is, appropriates funds, says who gets what, and nobody asks questions. There are no even paper trails.
That's correct.
Yeah, now, let me remain with you on this. Maybe we'll digress a little bit and look at the judiciary. Well, judiciary actually plays a great role in any democratic setting, whether in America or anywhere else. And between 1999 and to date, so many judges have been dismissed, for either bad judgment or receiving a bribe and all of that. And then recently, some judges' homes were also raided, based on that. Now, how do you look at the judiciary in the entire scenario?
Well, I would not say so many judges have been dismissed, not so many, but some judges. The recent onslaught against the judiciary is an attempt, a very weak attempt, to demystify the judiciary. Over and over again, times and times again, we have seen a very brave judicial system in this country. We're talking about a judiciary that, in a celebrated manner, gave judgment against military regimes in a celebrated manner. They had no protection, but they had the courage to speak. But what we are seeing now, that in an attempt to demystify the judiciary, to break that esoteric covering, so that we no longer address them as my lord. They say, oh, you have this, you have that, you have that. And then eventually it was all smoke and no fire.
Are you saying that some of the events that took place in the past, concerning judges, that were all right or something?
It's an ongoing concern, because most of these things are presently before courts of law. But the judgments that are coming out Haven't you seen what the learned Ezokeme will say? How many times he has won some of these institutions in a month? You know, all that drama, you know, all that paparazzi. Then where's the substance? When you come boils down to the nitty-gritty, perhaps they have cause to move. But then, you know, to prove a matter in court demands hard, cold evidence.
All right. Thank you very much, Esther Uzoma. We'll again come back to you in the course of the remainder of the time we have for this conversation. To return to Professor Gambo at our Just Network studios. Professor Gambo, again, listening to you and then listening to the other guests here with us, is it possible for us to attempt, make suggestions on how we can possibly overcome some of the apparently inherent institutional weaknesses that we have with our democracy? Because, I mean, if you look at the various institutions that we have, the framework with which we are going, are there ways that we can overcome this? Chief Ojuzo Kalu says, look, we have a deficit in our leadership recruitment process. We have persons who are practicing democracy but are not Democrats, and so on and so forth. We have persons who are not following the tenets of democracy, and therefore the challenges that we are having. What can be done?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think just like His Excellency, the former governor of Abia State has said, really you have people who are at the helm of affairs and who do not know even the role expectations of the offices they are occupying. If you ask me, the major challenge to a democratic experiment is both attitudinal and behavioral. Attitudinal in the sense that the attitude of people, those who impose themselves on the citizens in the name of, under the guise of being elected as representatives, truly speaking, their attitude to this system is terrible. The attitude is the one that is shaped and defined by their sectional interests. Whatever attitude they have towards a particular process, it is predicated on their personal interest. Let me give you a good example. If the Constitution is quite clear, Chapter 1, Section 7 of the 1999 Constitution as amended is quite explicit in terms of the mode of composition of local government in this country. And yet, there is gross violation of that section of the Constitution, and nobody has called anybody to order in respect of that. If I were the president, honestly speaking, any state that is operating management committee system at the local government, the Constitution does not make provision for any management or caretaker, whatever name it is being called. And therefore, the government will be acting legitimately by withholding subvention for local governments for that state. And you have to stand by it. That is the only way you can cause these people to change their attitude towards the system. And I said behavioral because these are people who are grossly deficient in democratic spirit. You can't give what you don't have. That's the truth. You can't give what you don't have. So if you are not democratic minded, there's no way you can respect the norms and principles of democracy. The Constitution is there. Those who frame the Constitution are wise men, and they frame the Constitution in such a way that if there is habitual obedience to the Constitution, definitely it's going to change a lot of things in this country. But where it suits us to ignore the Constitution, we do it, with impunity. Where it is in our favor to invoke the Constitution, we quickly do it, just for us to have our way. And I think that we cannot run a successful democratic system on the basis of whims and caprices. The Constitution is there to guide us in whatever action we take. As the elected representatives of the people, it should have a constitutional backing. And where that is lacking, of course, you expect nothing other than the confusion that we have in this country. And that is the sense in which I can argue that the system, the so-called democratic system that we claim to be practicing since 1999 to date, honestly speaking, is far, far, let me say, short of what the ideas of a democratic system should be. And that's why you see suffering is everywhere in the land. People are crying, poverty is on the increase. We are in recession, worker salaries have remained stagnant, even when prices of goods have skyrocketed. And so you begin to imagine how are Nigerians really coping, survival strategies in this kind of environment. And yet we are being told on daily basis, oh, things are going to be better and all that. I think we need to have a rethink so that at least we can capture the emotional attachment of citizens to the system. If we do not do that, honestly, time will come when everybody will say, look, to hell. After all, we have been under this system for how long? There's no any significant improvement in our socio-economic condition. So why should we continue to uphold a system that does not even care for us? And I think that is my fear for this country. The rate of unemployment, just look at unemployment in this country. The number of graduates that we turn out from universities, other tertiary institutions on a yearly basis. People go for NYC. After NYC, they come back to continue with life of servitude. I think that is highly immoral.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Thank you very much indeed for making your contributions to this program this morning. Professor Audu Gambo, Professor of Political Science, University of Jos. Thank you for being part of our show this morning.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Chief Zakalo, let's talk about followership, because it plays a key role. There are some leaders who may not have performed well in their offices, but the followers say, no, he did it right, because, of course, they gain from such leaders. Now, how would you assess followership in Nigeria?
Well, the issue of followership and leadership has been both for the holder and beholder. Both the followers and the leaders are the same board. People follow some leaders because of religious bias. People follow some leaders because of tribal sentiments. Nigerians' problem is not followership or leadership, it's economic. We're no longer having a political problem. Our problem is economic. We need to develop once we have the economic problem sorted out, both the followership and the leadership will be right. Because the followers want to eat. So if the leader can drop some crumbs, they follow him. But we have also some followers who are adherents, who want to follow because they believe in the leader, the leadership of the leader. So Nigeria has become a hotspot where it's either you vote for me for my religion or you vote for me for my tribe. So I'm calling on both the voters and the leaders to remove these two things on the board. They should look for competent leaders to lead them.
Let me pose a question to Chief Kalu and then Ms. Uzoma. Is Nigeria's current democratic arrangement too costly to run? And if so, what can we do to reduce the cost of running our democracy? Take that question against the background of what happened when we were having the 1999 Constitution. Virtually, the structures and principles inherent in the 1979 Constitution were transposed, or transplanted rather, into the 1999 Constitution. The number of states had grown from 19 to 36.
I'll do that
very briefly. Yes.
When the states were at 12 states, we had the 50, possibly we were using 50% or we were using 30% as our recurrent expenditure. When we went to 21 states, we went to 50% of our recurrent. Then when we went to 36 states, the recurrent went to 70%. So how can you develop? Now, I'm sure the recurrent should be about 70-30, recurrent and capital should be about 70-30. When we were governors, Onye Kwaragba was our commissioner for finance. He was very particular about this. We are looking at recurrent to be 25%, even 20. The man went to 20 at a time. All the politicians they held for, they wanted to pull down the building. We went to 25 against 75 for capital. And that's the only way you can work for the people. That's the only way we issued free education, looking at our universities and looking at the roads. We are not going to do anything unless we're a little bit to restructure the place. If we don't restructure the place a little bit to put back the states are too costly. Let's go back to the regions. It will be a better thing to go back to parliamentary system. Presidential system is too costly with 2 chambers of the houses here and all the peripheral of power. We need to go back to the region. We need to come together, discuss how to go back to the region so we can be able to cut costs, because the cost is enormous. The people will rise one day to say, no, we do not agree with whoever is the governor, whoever is the local government chairman, whoever is what. They will come up one day and say, no, enough is enough. It happened in Romania, to Ceausescu. It could happen anywhere. So let people don't take the masses, the people of Nigeria, for granted.
All right, Ms. Uzoma, what's your take on this in terms of the cost of running our democracy?
Yes, I think we should interrogate, why is government work so attractive? Why does recurrent expenditure take up to 70%? Why is it's definitely bloated? Why? It is a beacon of our underdevelopment that everybody wants to work for government because there is nowhere else you can work. Nowhere else. If we're developing as we should as a people, the government work will not be so attractive. Everybody wants to be SA to the SA to the SSA. You see? So that is what blows that recurrent. Granted, that their budget is overblown. But why is it? Because it's the honey pot right now. Everybody is gathering there. Everybody wants a bit of it. We must, as of necessity, develop other sectors of our economy so that government work will not be so attractive and give us an overbloated recurrent.
What is your response to the structural issues that Chief Kalu talked about? Look at the number of states, look at the number of local governments, look at the size of our National Assembly, look at,
It doesn't necessarily follow that, if you dismantle the present structure, then you will save money. No. That's the logic I'm trying to bring.
Thank you. All right, thank you. We have some tweets now coming from Nigerians, and the first one is from Jeffrey Horrible, and I hope I got that correctly. What we cannot take away from the present administration is the will and capacity to confront the evil of corruption that has ruined Nigeria's democracy.
And Bayo Adebayo tweets, we have only one and big challenge in our democracy, and that is corruption. We have seen politics as a money-making venture.
Now, Dele Jackson Solomon, both government and civil society are internally fragmented in democracy. These multiple crisscrossing causes unequal Nigerian citizens' rights. I hope that made sense.
All right, and this is from Law Alpha C. The fact of the matter is that most Nigerian leaders are not sure of the future of this country. So they grab any money available.
That's right. They don't believe in Nigeria. Yes.
But let's, Chief Ojuzo, we are pressed for time, and there's nothing else. Yes, there's nothing else we can take. But this is food for thought. Not just for us here, but also for our viewers. Is there a sense in which Nigerians have, or some Nigerians, as the tweet said, Nigerian leaders or the Nigerian elite have less faith in the country, and therefore we are seeing the multiplicity of the challenges that we face? Well, on that note, of course, I would like to thank you, former Governor of Abia State, Chief Ojuzo Kalu. Thanks always for obliging us with your comments and your insights. We also like to thank legal practitioner Esther Uzoma, who's also a civil society activist.
My pleasure.
All right, this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take our last item for discussion this morning and then move on to our complementary segments.
Admission forms for the 2017-2018 academic session of NTA Television College JAWS into its diploma programs are now on sale. The diploma programs are in film and TV production, broadcast journalism, and TV engineering technology. Applicants are required to have at least 5 credits, including English language and mathematics at SSC, NECO, or GCO levels in not more than 1 sitting. Application forms can be obtained from the TV College Refi JAWS or at any NTA zonal centers nationwide on payment of a no-refundable fee of 7,500 naira in bank draft in favor of NTA Television College. Completed application forms should be returned to the Office of the Academic Secretary, NTA Television College, or the Center of Purchase on or before 28th of July 2017. For further inquiries, please call 0806 980 9807 or 0703 660 7155. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
To the outer framers, the hat tippers, The fringe grows. You don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
Pump it up while your feet are stomping and the gym is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. Pump up the drum and push up your hand. You know, say me fans them plenty like sun. Jump up and dance, make them understand. Say me energy could have never be contraband. No matter what life throws at me, I can handle it constantly. All of my fans them invited. DJ, make my day.
Make my day. Make my day. Make my day.
A hectic lifestyle or overeating can cause a burning pain in your chest. That's heartburn. Take Gaviscon. One dose relieves in 3 minutes to soothe the pain of heartburn. It goes straight to the source to work for hours, providing long-lasting relief.
That's why I recommend Gaviscon.
I recommend Gaviscon.
Gaviscon, fast relief you can actually feel.
If symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor.
All right, you're welcome back and still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As we indicated, we have 3 issues. We dealt with 2 issues already. We have a new set of guests who are here to talk about efforts to build the capacity of Nigerian exporters in order to enable them access the international market, especially the European Union. Of course, the initiative has been driven by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, as well as the Center for Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries, which is based in the Netherlands.
All right, yeah, we are being joined by Sidi Aliyu Abdullahi. He is the Director of Policy Strategy at the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning on the program.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
And also with us is Patrick Kauka, Senior Program Manager, East Southern Africa, Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
All right, let me begin by asking you, Sidi Aliyu, to tell us exactly what the training is all about.
Yeah, the training is a sort of NEPC intervention in correcting certain deficiency that we discovered in the process of promoting non-oil exports from Nigeria. Our exporters, despite the effort they have, despite the tenacity to actually penetrate the export market, they still have some gaps. And those are the knowledge gap, the experience gap, and the exposure gap. And those are the gaps that NEPC is trying to actually correct. And we decided to engage the services of the CBI, which is a professional center that has been well known all over the years in the promoting of non-oil export from developing countries to the EU.
All right. What kind of potential exporters are being targeted?
Yes, actually we are targeting the micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises because if you are already an established exporter, a big-time exporter, this program is not meant for you. So we target those in the category of medium and small-scale enterprises, and we are doing this program together with the staff of NEPC.
All right. Mr. Patrick Gauka, I mean, just before you give us the details of perhaps, what the training program will entail, how long it might be, and all of that, we've discussed on this program some of the challenges that Nigerian exporters face. I mean, there was a time a couple of years ago when beans, imports were banned, from beans exports were banned from Nigeria. That matter, of course, was taken up. What ordinarily should be the checklist of any potential exporter to the European Union? What is it you need to get right? What is it you need to avoid?
Well, we learned actually that one of the major gaps that potential exporters face when it comes to exporting to the European market is that the lack of information, of correct market information. So they need to know where to find, they need to learn where to find market information on potential export markets, the requirements, etc. So that's one of the first biggest challenges, to support them in where to find information in order to be able to select your market segments and to find out what the criteria are on these markets.
Now let's stay with you. Clearly, you identified knowledge, experience, and the exposure gaps.
Yeah.
These are said to count against the Nigerian exporter. Now, how will this training resolve this?
The way we do it is actually there are two processes that's in this program that we focus at. One is that we support directly the small, medium-sized potential exporters to get to the European market. And on the other hand, we support the NEPC staff, the NEPC coaches in this program, in order to learn them, to build capacity with them, so that after CBI is left, they can continue with other exporters to support them to get export market ready. So those are two parallel steps in the program. Now we make it as practical as possible. So the knowledge gap is one of the first that need to be answered. It comes to, okay, where am I now? Where do I want to go? Where is my market? The experience gap is another one. We want to bring in the export coaches from NEPC in order to learn them to how the exporters think actually. So we let them team up with the exporters. And the exposure gap is answered by actually bringing the NEPC staff as well as the exporters in this program to the European market in 2018. Within the framework of what we call an export market awareness mission.
Let's again return to a question I asked about the checklist. You would say that's very important for marketing, whether at home or abroad, for you to have a clear sense of your target that you are facing. Now, what is it that you know, or your association or the NAPC knows about the way Nigerian potential exporters have tried to approach the EU? Can we have an example? And what ordinarily should have been the proper approach? Just by way of illustration for the benefit of our viewers.
Well, I think that this is a question that best can be answered by NEPC itself.
Assist you there. What we did was initially we narrowed down to about 33 products, and then we also 36 products based on one state, one product initiative. We identified the product from every state that could be a potential product in the EU market. And then we also zeroed down on our 13 strategic export products. But then, using the CBI tools, we were able to now narrow down to about 3 products. That is the cashew, the sesame seed, and the cocoa. So small and medium-scale enterprises were identified in these 3 product areas, and then we are now building their competency so as to be in a position to be able to export to the European markets.
Now, what other incentives can these exporters get from you apart from this training?
The training is a very expensive training, of which left alone, the various companies could not be able to access that. So it's like the government is subsidizing that training on behalf of the SME. And many of them are getting actually ready. They are getting to that position to be in a position to export. Remember, very soon, Nigeria, or let's say ECOWAS, is likely going to sign the Economic Partnership Agreement. And then if we are not really prepared, it will be that we have an agreement but we don't have products to penetrate the EU market. Those are the kind of areas we are trying to actually correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for Netherlands, Nigeria is a priority country, since it has the largest consumer market in Nigeria, in Africa. Now, Netherlands and the EU were also considered as a top destination for Nigerian exporters. Now, how strong is this relationship, in terms of trade?
Well, we have actually the origin of this program came from by request from the NEPC as well as the Netherlands embassy in Abuja and Lagos, and what they saw actually is that the export from Nigeria to the Netherlands was a bit declining. On the other hand, the other way, Dutch companies are also very interested in Nigerian market because it's a huge potential export market. The relationship between the Netherlands and Nigeria has been historical, actually, and we think by implementing this program, there's going to be favors on both sides. One for the Nigerian exporters to get an increase in their turnover to the European market. We focus broader than only the Netherlands. And on the other way, we try to interest Dutch companies in the products in the Nigerian market, in cashew cocoa, as well as sesame. But there are many other products that are of big interest for the Dutch importers and investors.
Yeah, that's why I would like to ask Sidi Ali a question. You said that we narrow down to 3 products: sesame seed, cocoa, as well as cashew. Already, I mean, cocoa is an international commodity. But you also have, apart from the Europeans who are in Europe, or other nationals who are in Europe, we have a huge Nigerian population in the diaspora. Sometimes, I mean, they would also like to have the Nigerian grown food, as it were, or condiments. Sometimes, because you also have a rate of rejection of these ones. When are we targeting those items? I mean, if you look at what the banana republics have done in exporting banana from the Americas, to elsewhere in the world, this is one of the ways, they're good. Why are we focused on only 3? I mean, as I said, cocoa is already an international commodity. So if you knock that off, what are you left with?
Yes, you'll agree with me that cocoa, our main export of cocoa is the cocoa beans. For so many years, we've been concentrating on just exporting the commodity. There is need to actually go ahead further in terms of processing. And the training we are going through is actually to support the MSME to be in a position to process, that is to add value. It's through adding value that the Nigerian economy will get most of the benefits. So we are more concentrated in processing of these products to add value before exporting to the EU. And you see, going back to your question about the checklist, a lot of our exporters could find it easy to export to Asia. But when they come to a country like EU, because of the different requirements, they are handicapped. So the competency training is right from the factory. The international best practice in how you handle your product, in fact, how you source your raw materials, how you process the raw material, the kind of information they are supposed to keep, the documentation, and even in cases where child labor is being used, these are some of the issues that are not acceptable in the EU market. So we just have to build their competencies along the entire value chain to be in a position to say, yes, we are in a position to export to EU. This program has been done in some countries, Uganda, Ethiopia, and it has been a huge success. And we don't see why we could not replicate similar program here in Nigeria.
And what is the role of quarantine service in all of this?
Yeah, you see, quarantine service is just like any other regulatory agency. You understand. The level of the level of control could be much more better if right from the handler, the farmer, the exporter, you already know what you are supposed to do. So in that case, from the manufacturing stage, everything has been taken care of, so the control will be less. You see, it's like a situation whereby the quarantine service, even though they are doing a good job, I believe there are a lot of things that go and that escapes them. And that is where we find ourselves in most of these issues.
Where is this training taking place and for how long?
Yeah, the training so far, we've been rotating from Lagos to Abuja in NEPC offices, and it will last for about a year. That is the initial stage. The important thing is that the NEPC staff and then will have the competency in handling these 3 products, and then they can use that experience to now extend it to other products, even without the CBI.
Who qualifies to attend your training?
From the public sector side, that is from NEPC, any officer can qualify. We have what we call export officials and then export coaches. And then from the manufacturer side, the selection was done using the instruments of our zonal offices. smart offices that are in most of the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. So the recommendation came from the smart offices and the regional offices, and then a shortlist was made, and then the training starts. So we have, right now the training is going on, and we have a number of private sector companies that are benefiting.
Now, Patrick, are you optimistic that this training is going to be useful to the export sector in this country?
Well, I'm always optimistic because CBI was founded more than 40 years ago, and the fact that we still exist proves, I think, that our programs are quite successful. In almost all cases, we see that the participants, being the SME exporters in our program, realize an export increase to the European market. So
Which African country could you possibly point to as a masterpiece of your success in this kind of training program?
Oh, there are many, because I've been active in countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda, Tanzania. We're active in South Africa. There are many successful examples.
All right, Mr. Patrick Gorka, Senior Program Manager, East and Southern Africa, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands, would like to thank you for being part of our program this morning. And then we also would like to appreciate the Director in charge of Policy and Strategy at the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Malam Sidi Aliu. Thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right, the foreign scene is next on Good Morning Nigeria, and let's join Oyemi Ajayi.
All right, thank you and welcome. The UK police say they have arrested Salman Abedi, a 23-year-old man in connection with the suicide bomb attack in Manchester, which killed 23 people, including the attacker, and wounded dozens at a concert by a US pop singer, Ariana Grande. At least 12 out of the 59 injured victims were children, and one of the fatalities was an 8-year-old child.
These were children, young people and their families that those responsible chose to terrorise and kill. This was an evil act. Our first thoughts are with the families of those killed and injured, and we will do whatever we can to support them.
Now, South Korea's military has fired warning shots at a suspected drone from North Korea amid tension over Pyongyang's latest missile test, which drew international condemnation and a warning from China. The military said the identity of the object remained unclear, but it is suspected to be a drone. South Korea fired more than 90 shots in return, and it disappeared from radar screens. The incursion came with tension already high on Korean Peninsula after the North's test launch of the ballistic missile, which Pyongyang said proved advances in its pursuit of building a nuclear-tipped weapon that can hit U.S. targets. And that's it on the foreign scene. Bye for now.
And that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us again tomorrow for another edition. I am Kirian Umayo. Have a great day.
And I'm Kingsley Osadala. Of course, we appreciate you being with us on the program today. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning.